Yeah, hello, welcome to episode, or rather, I'm going to stop saying episode. I'm going to say character strength number now. Welcome to character strength number 7, Hope, which I've realized brings me to the last of my transcendence character strengths. There are one, two, three, four, five character strengths for transcendence: appreciation of excellence and beauty, gratitude, hope, humor, and spirituality. All five of those are in my top 7. I wonder what that means. Am I a transcendent person? Is transcendence my job? Do I transcend? Am I a transcender? Am I a transponster? It's a transponster! For those of you who know that reference, you're an absolute legend. Let me know where that reference is from in the comments. Um, Anyways, I would just like to say before I continue that I am super grateful, reference to the last episode. Well done for those of you who listened. To everybody who has supported the journey so far and has made it to number 7. I'm super grateful for all the lovely words that you have to say. Genuinely, though, it's not just lip service, it's not just a mundane line a day kind of thing that I'm doing here. I am super grateful for everyone who has paid attention and listened to anything that I've had to say over the last few episodes. And I hope, segue into this episode, I really, really hope that you will consider sharing it with somebody who would be interested, showing your support by liking, commenting, any of those things, because it just helps the channel grow. It helps me grow. It helps me network with the right kind of people so that I can get my business to where I want it to be and get positive psychology to where I want it to be and thus make the world a bit of a better place. And I hope that you and I can both work together on that. For now, all I need from you is, like I said, just that online support, tapping, liking, sharing, especially, and commenting would be great as well, just so I can get some good feedback, so I know what to do if you like it and what not to do if you want me to change it up and mix it up a little bit. So that's as much as I'm going to do for this introduction, actually, because I have two guests with me today for this episode. I have a strong feeling I'm going to split the episodes into two parts because they are quite long. I spoke with Gurchehn Singh, first of all, who is an intuitive psychotherapist. I might have said that wrong, actually, but we do an introduction in her segment, so that will be correct. All the details about how you can connect with Gurchin will be in the description box as well, so you can connect with her on social media. You can also grab her book on Amazon, which we'll be discussing in our segment as well. She's a great force to be reckoned with because I connected with Gurchin on the Brown Therapist Network, and I really respect the work that she does, particularly for South Asian women. And I want to know more about hope and South Asian women and as a character strength in our conversation. Followed by that, I talk with Raihan Hussain at great length, who is going through a bit of a career change at the moment. He has navigated some difficult times during the pandemic. He's navigated a career change, travels as well. He's recently just come back from a tour around Asia. So it will be good to tap in and find out how hope has dictated some of his life through all of our waffles as we get to know each other as well through that episode, or rather through that segment. So that's why I think I might split this episode into two, just so you guys have got something to break it up for you as well. And that said, I will get cracking on with our chat with Gurchin, and I'll set myself a target on the very end at the
Awesome.
side
Thank you so much. I'm
of
here with Gurchehn Singh,
chatting
who
with
is going to talk to
Rayhan.
us a little bit about the
Peace out.
character strength of Hope and what that means in terms of her practice. So thanks for joining us, Gurchehn.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
no problem. The first thing I was going to ask is VIA strengths. So I know you've just mentioned that you've been listening into the couple of the episodes that I've already uploaded. What are your thoughts on the VIA so far? Is this the first time you've kind of got into it? Have you got your profile? Tell us your process.
Yeah. So I hadn't heard of VIA before. It's only after I listened to your podcast that I started exploring it. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is a good tool. So I took the survey and I was able to kind of see what my strengths were in the VIA survey.
Nice. Okay. And out of curiosity, what was your top signature strength? Number one.
Number one was spirituality, which I do identify with a lot as spirituality.
Nice. That was my top one as well. Okay, cool. And we're here today to talk about hope, which for me was 8 out of 24. So just under the signature strengths, but still a strength nevertheless. As a quick reminder to our listeners that none of these are weaknesses, they are strengths that perhaps are less or more used. Where did hope come up for you, Gretchen?
Hope was in my top five.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do you see when you got your profile, did it kind of make sense or were there any surprises that you had?
There wasn't any surprises in my top five. A lot of what my values are and what I try to live by were in my top five, and that was kind of just strengthened my beliefs in my own values, I think. Yeah,
Okay, I like that. Yeah, makes you kind of sure of your values and where they sit with you in your work, I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and in terms of your work, what is your practice? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I am a psychotherapist slash intuitive therapist. And I say intuitive because I've started more working into my spirituality, and I have a gift of clairsentient, which is I feel I'm an empath, so I feel a lot. And so I have started developing that gift, and the more I've worked with it, the more intuitive I am. And yeah, it works in my private practice with my clients, and I'm able to kind of bring that work in and really just draw things out that the client might not be aware of. So it just gives them that space to really think about and reflect on some of the things that might be going on for them.
Mm, okay. And what kind of background do the majority of your clients come from?
It's quite varied. A lot of women from all diverse places come to my private practice, but I've had a lot of um, South Asian men come in as well, which is good to see. I get a few, and it's working with them and being able to really realize that it's mental health is so taboo in South Asian men culture, and just trying to for somebody to come and then spread the word and share their experience. A lot of my clients have been going to their friends and family and really being open about that. Actually, I'm using therapy and it's helping, and that's really nice to see.
Mm, okay, that's quite interesting that we have a specific demographic of South Asians here that are, increasingly coming to therapy, which is great. And I'd
Yeah,
be curious to know the role that hope plays in that demographic, perhaps versus the global majority demographic, or the white British demographic as well. And maybe that's something we can tap into as we go through that conversation.
yeah.
Um, so a little bit more about these clients and your practice. Do you find that there's a particular type of psychotherapy that you do? What kind of issues are you dealing with mostly?
So a lot of my training is being in integrative counselling, which means I work with different modalities and really believe that one size doesn't fit all. And so being able to kind of work and train in a lot of broader modalities allows me to kind of see what the client needs. So everybody is individual, and it might be that, one thing might work for one person and it might not work for another person. So it's just being able to touch on what the client needs and what they bring in and how they work. So it's a lot of building that therapeutic relationship first and really getting to know your client before you bring in that work.
Mm. Really, person-centered care is just at the real core of our work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Moving into specifically about hope, then, what does hope mean for you? And you can answer that personally, professionally, however,
Yeah.
holistically, being an integrative therapist that you are.
Hope for me, it means believing in something bigger than me, and it relates to my faith, my spirituality, courage, strength, believing in something that you can't see, but you're being looked after. Hope moves me into positivity and light, and hope doesn't mean that you're always going to get what you want. So you might have dreams and goals. It's allowing yourself to trust that even if you don't get that something, you're being redirected to something better.
Mm. And do you find that your clients share a similar viewpoint of what hope is? What does it mean for the majority of them?
A lot of clients hold on to hope, but then they also hold on to fear. And when I work
Mhm.
with my clients, they're holding on to both these things, but you can't hold on to both things at the same time. You have to make one bigger than the other. And so when we do some of this work in the therapeutic space is trying to get the client to make hope bigger than their fear.
That's so interesting because I have, to offer a different perspective of that. I love that you mentioned that there's imbalance sometimes between hope and fear. And I know that we both share the same top strength of spirituality. And for anyone who listened to spirituality, that episode, there was a little add-on that I did at the end of it where I was like, you know what, I've been a bit too careful. I'm not being brave enough to talk about religion being quite an important part of my life. And one of the things that I wanted to share about hope and fear is there's this saying in Islamic scriptures, I think it's a hadith, that faith is essentially the two wings of a bird. One of those wings is hope, and one of those wings is fear. And you kind of need both of them in order to help you fly and go to the different heights. And one can't really exist without the other. They need to be in a kind of a tandem and a balance. So it's
Yeah.
so interesting that you mentioned that there is this kind of push and pull for your clients
Yeah.
after both.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it doesn't mean that fear is going to go away. It's
Mm,
making that fear smaller. It's just being allowing yourself to perhaps hold on to hope and making that bigger and working with that fear that, you know that fear is there. It's always going to be there when you are trying to step out of your comfort zone or you're trying something new, but it's allowing yourself to make it smaller and make
mm.
hope that actually I'm okay to do and try these new things.
And sometimes it's worth recognizing as well that sometimes fear can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, it's working with that fear. It's almost allowing yourself to think about, yeah, it's okay that this fear is there. It's just letting me know that I am moving out of my comfort zone, and it's allowing yourself to be comfortable with that fear being there.
Mm. And in the same breath, then, if we can have good fear, do you think there's such a thing as bad hope?
Oh, now that's a question. Hope for me has always been in a positive light. Even if you are going to do something bad, you're always hoping that um that bad thing turns out
Mm.
in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So hope for me, I've always seen it in a positive light. There might be people out there might come and say to you in the comments that no, hope can be bad as well. But for me, it's always been something positive and brings lightness
Mm.
into the work that I do and in my personal life as well.
Mm. I wonder, like, because I'm thinking when I hear bad hope, I think, does that mean like delusional or something? And it takes me back to when I was doing my vision board actually for this year, and one of the values was be delusional about what you want. And there's something about that word that didn't sit right with me because I thought, why is there such a negative connotation? What, like, can we not use the word bold or something? And I don't know, maybe it's not bad hope, maybe it's bold hope that
Yeah.
actually, what I will get this. It's a really like, oh, huge, but I'm determined to get there. And
Yeah.
maybe it's not so much about what the thing that you hope for. Maybe it's not so much about that, but about the process and the determination, the drive, the perseverance you have to get there. That's important.
Yeah.
Mm. And that kind of tapped into. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here. The last episode with Lizzie, when we spoke about love of learning, the idea was that different strengths can be used together and in tandem. When you were speaking about making fear small and hope big, in the same way, strengths can also be used as leverage against one another.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Okay. When do you see your clients kind of tapping into hope as a method to get to their outcome? Is there like a process that you take them through, or something that they already have within them?
I think it's always within everyone, and it's just trying to get them and facilitate them to that hope and to their own answers. And I always say to clients, the work that we do in the therapeutic space is like a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you feel like you're moving forward, and sometimes you're feeling like you're going backwards. And it's because you're tapping into things that have been suppressed for a very long time. And when we kind of think about hope, it's just allowing yourself to make things smaller when you are trying to work through whatever is coming up for you at that time.
Yeah, spot on. I love that. It's a roller coaster. I don't know, when you said it, it just felt really relatable. My first two, I always say this about therapy. When I first started going to therapy, it was like a nice little uphill trajectory, and then all of a sudden, boom, a plateau. And I used to get frustrated going to therapy, thinking, why am I not having those really good soul cleansing cries in these sessions? Why am I frustrated? But it's a real kind of slow burner, if
Yeah.
that you kind of have to keep going through it. Okay, so let's talk about hope then in relation to your target client group. And I know that, I want us to talk a little bit about your exciting new book as well that's been published. So let me know what's your hope for your new book actually. Let's start there.
My hope for my new book is that it is my target client group is women. and it's around some of the taboo subjects that South Asian women might go through. And a lot of other women will relate to some of these taboo subjects.
Mm,
But in South Asian culture, we don't talk about these taboo subjects. And a lot of women that I've worked with have become stuck because of not being able to explore when they've been younger, or really identify with their self as who they are. In South Asian culture, women are taught to be daughters, and then they become wives and daughter-in-laws and mothers, and in all that process of growing up, they don't know who they are, and they can't identify who they are, and then they become stuck, and it's such a difficult journey to try to find themselves. And so my hope with this book is to try to, I know some of the work that we've done together in some of when we've worked with Brown Therapists Network, and we talk about integrational trauma, a lot of that is there. And my hope for the book is that our generation starts to try to become aware of some of these patterns that we hold, that we
mm.
can break those patterns, we can heal. So moving forwards, we're not passing it on to the future generations that are going to come.
Spot on. Oh, I can't tell you how much I got a bit of goosebumps there listening to that because for several reasons. No, seriously, for several reasons. The first one is that the values of that really align closely with my business values, which is muted healing. And that's about muting the noises that take you away from who you are. And exactly as you beautifully described, we are so conditioned into being something for somebody else. You know, you're given the title of you're somebody's son or daughter and teacher and doctor or whatever, that we really forget in the process of building that, who are we really at the core? When you strip away all of those labels, once you mute all of those noises, who are you? And the majority of my clients are also South Asian females who, again, have that same difficulty, especially after marriage and motherhood.
Yeah,
They, the common thing I get after that is, I just don't know who I am anymore.
yeah,
And it's just, it's a real one that we can see, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all, but I know for me and my Brown network, for example, the ones that I know personally, when we look at our mothers and when we look at our older relatives, female relatives, you recognize that their identity is so grounded in that motherhood and their marriage
yeah,
that they almost don't know a life for themselves.
that's right.
And the other thing that you said about was intergenerational trauma. We are all about breaking those cycles, making sure that we're doing better for the for the new generations to come. It's also, I find that can be used for DEI work. If you're into diversity, equity, inclusion, it's time to read books like this so we can understand the
That's
experience
right.
of South Asian women so that we can support them better in the workplaces. I know for a fact I'll be getting this book because there's one person in particular I'd like to gift it to. But once I've read it, I'd also like to recommend it to my clients as well. So I'm looking forward to it being
Amazing.
launched actually. So all the best with it. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that.
Thank you.
In relation to your target client group, let's say then, is there any kind of interventions or an activity, even for our listeners who might feel a bit, oh, actually, I feel somewhat inspired by this session on hope. What can I do now to go and nurture some of that? Is there anything that you can recommend?
Yeah. So a lot of my book has got reflections in, and that's where it starts, is trying to work and do the work on yourself, reflect on some of your own behaviors, trying to identify your patterns and becoming aware of them before you take that next step of wanting to do something about it. A lot of my book has got mindful practices in, just so if people are not aware of mindful practices,
Mm,
helps you to, again, just become aware and brings you to the present. Um, uh, with sharing just for now is I would recommend clients just to maybe just bring that stillness in. And a lot of people, and meditation is so broad now, and a lot of people are getting into it. You might not know what meditation is, or you might think you need to practice a guided meditation, or if you're in a, you practice faith, you might think you need to do it a certain way. But it's all about, meditation is about trying to bring stillness and awareness to yourself. So maybe just sitting there for a couple of minutes and seeing how that feels, really just connecting with your own body and mind and soul. And that's all it takes, is just a couple of minutes, and it might feel difficult and uneasy at first, but the more you do it, those couple of minutes, and you build on that, you're just trying to bring that awareness to yourself and how you feel, and identifying with your own body. Sometimes you feel achy or you feel stuck, and it's just trying to think about where that feels for you.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. The reconnection of, again, that's what we do a lot of that on the channel. The what's the word when you realign? That's it. The realignment of the mind, the body, and the soul. That is so crucial to this. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyone who's hearing the words meditation and mindfulness and rolling your eyes and so on, trust me, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, ripped it up, thrown it away, thrown it back together. But there is something there about just slowing down your mind.
That's right.
Let's move the words away from it, and let's get to the core of what that is. It's about your brain is constantly going and going and going and telling you that, there's no time for hope. Just focus on what you're doing now. Keep going on
Yeah.
autopilot, but stopping it, giving your mind, body, and soul time to breathe and
Yeah.
realign. It's so crucial to nurturing that space for hope.
Yeah.
Okay. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, Gurchehn, and I think
Thank
if it
you.
wasn't like a set amount that we are trying to cram into the episode, I reckon we could probably go off into different tangents, because there's definitely alignment there between our values as well in
Yeah.
terms of mind, body, hope, and spirituality, and so on. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up the episode?
I think hope is, yeah, just allowing yourself to believe in that hope. It's it's difficult, there's so much going on in the world. People are struggling individually, and there's so much, going on that you kind of you can get into that darkness, and it's just allowing yourself to bring in some of these practices that help you feel relaxed and comfortable and light you up. So it might be just when we talk about hope, and we give ourselves goals, we can pressure ourselves to get to those goals. But if you try to make everything smaller and just allowing yourself to bring in some practices, really trying to bring that self-care in, I think that's so important when you are trying to do anything where you're hoping for a better life, or a better job, or better finances. It's just allowing yourself to look after you first. It begins with you, and it's allowing yourself to work on yourself in that way, bringing those self-care practices in. When you are in a better place, then that hope, you step into that hope, and the vibrations that you kind of step into, it'll just allow yourself to connect with the things that you're wanting to bring into your life.
So many important, crucial words there. Vibrations, connecting. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence, Gretchen, in this
Thank you.
episode. And we're going to be wrapping it up there. I will keep Gurchen's information, all the details of where you can find out a bit more about Gurchen's work, the link to the book, etc. It will all be in the bio of wherever you're listening to this on, whether it's Spotify or YouTube. So do check that out, and check out that wonderful book as well. And I will stop the recording here.
A huge thank you once again to Gurchehn Singh. I remember doing that conversation back in January, I think it was, before life got really busy with various other new jobs and projects that I was starting. And it was very early on in the days of Character Strength 24 in 24. So the style was a little bit kind of different. It was a bit more structured. But you know what? Nevertheless, it was still very, very informative. I learned a lot there about integrative counselling, good fear but versus bad hope, and I noticed this common theme that reoccurs about hope in different communities. And in particular, I know in the last episode with Dr. Nadia, we spoke about South Asian women. Here, we're speaking about South Asian women again. So there's definitely lots to be said about the work for psychotherapy and psychology in global majority groups. We're now going to segment into our next speaker with Raihan, who I interviewed quite recently. So there's been a good few months gap between Gurchehn and Raihan's interview, and therefore you'll notice a slight difference. This is a good moment for everyone to take a pause, boil the kettle, stretch your legs and whatever. If you're sitting and watching this for, I don't know why you do that, but if it's on as background noise, then of course go ahead and take a little bit of a break, pause it, listen to a song, boogie or something. Make sure you move your bodies as you are listening, or if you are finding yourself being stagnant for for a long bit of time. I also just want to alert everyone to the fact that by now, if you're listening to all 8 episodes of this podcast, then you know that the VIA character strength is available to everyone. Please don't assume, perhaps if you've caught on maybe only in the last 2 episodes, that the VIA character strength is, an exclusive something that you have to pay for. Yes, there are paid versions, but there is a free version available for everyone to access and use, and that is always going to be on www.viacharacter.org. It's a very well-known, well-used, well-researched piece of equipment, so I'd highly recommend that if you are intrigued and you want to find out your own character strengths profile, go ahead, make yourself a free profile, go ahead, do the survey, download it, let us know your results. I'm always looking for guests potentially to start in future episodes. So, I'm working 1 month in advance now rather than back in January when I thought I was going to crack on and get all of them done in one go, which is why I interviewed Gurchehn so early on in the year. So, yeah, this brings us to the next part of Hope, where I'm going to be chatting with Raihan. And as I say, if you have done the survey and you want to perhaps have some contributions to the podcast, let me know on any of my socials. Raihan used to work for a flight company, which he will talk a little bit about in his segment. He is now actually very excitedly going back to film school. So he's a mature adult learner. He's taken a different career trajectory, which I think is really, really quite crucial for this episode on hope. He's also been through some fairly tough times recently during the pandemic with the loss of his mother, which he'll speak about. So a bit of a trigger warning for anybody who is about to listen. There are some heavy themes here, which may be quite upsetting for some. Do take some time to give yourself self-care, self-love. Do what you need to do to recuperate before you come back and listen to the rest of the episode, should you wish to do that. As always, let us know your thoughts. Maybe I'll catch you on the opposite side of the episode while we round it up with an intervention for us all to try, or maybe I'll just leave it at the end of that. I haven't quite decided, and that's how you guys know is the brand. We'll keep it as authentic as possible here. Let's chat to Raihan.
Seeing as we're focusing mostly on hope, as it's your number 2 character strength, what does hope mean for you?
Hope means for me. Good question. Like, I guess there's I guess if we start with what hope, the definition is, I guess it's kind of the desire for a specific outcome, or always. I'm trying to do that thing where you try not to use the word in the definition. I was going to say hope for the future, but desire for things to get better, essentially. And I guess what hope means for me is I think hope can be quite powerful, but then dangerous at the same time, where I think a life without hope would definitely be depressing. I couldn't live the nihilist way where like life is meaningless. And the thing I like about hope is that you don't have to be religious. It's not with faith where, or with hope, you don't have to have a religious background. It can stem from a belief in yourself, kind of giving you that fuel to have inner strength to kind of carry on and persevere with whatever endeavors you're doing. And but yeah, for me to I guess my view of hope is just it's kind of like that inner fuel to carry on, especially during hard times, or to motivate yourself. Definitely through hard times, especially because it's such a strong emotive feeling. Hope is like you have hope and then you have nostalgia, where one's looking forwards, the other's looking backwards. And hope is possibly even more, the possibilities are more limitless, because hope is based around potential of what could be. Now, there's a lot of power in that, because, especially if you're an ambitious person, you have dreams, there's things you want to achieve, hope is great. But then, like, I guess sometimes you do need a bit of grounding in reality as well, not to be a downer, but just so that if what you're hoping for doesn't come to fruition, you're not kind of, I didn't get this, hope didn't work out for me. So it's kind of like, and there's been times when I've hoped for certain things and it hasn't happened, and then reality hits you like a train on platform 5 at East Croydon Station. But it's it's a double-edged sword. Sorry, I tend to waffle a lot. You'd see him at dessert.
It's not a waffle. I'm just curious about this platform 5 incident. This sounds really so specific that it's definitely happened.
Yeah. Platform 5 always annoys me because it always gets cancelled. It always platform 2. You'll get a train on platform 2, and it says it's coming on platform 2, and then they switch it, saying, "Oh no, it's platform 4 and 5 now." So and they'll do it in the last minute, and it's one of those ones where you literally have to go up the stairs and switch. And I'm like, I knew you were going to change it. Well, you could have just said like 10 to 15 minutes earlier. And yeah, that is a big pet peeve for me when they change the platform last minute. So yeah, still gets to me clearly. It's still on
It's giving it's but you know what? It's giving a nice little analogy here in that you might hope for it to come at a certain platform, but at the last minute, if changes happen, it kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit. That's why, you know, there's things that you said about hope being powerful, but it can also be dangerous. It has the ability to ground you, but it also has the ability to make you fly. Like all these different multifacets to hope actually gives me a different dimension of looking at it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I guess just to clarify, because I think on the day we met, I apologize, I don't think I was the most social because it was like it was when there was a big wedding, wasn't it?
It was a wedding scene, yeah.
Remember, we only had like two interactions, but I remember like we had our interactions, and even though they were brief, I was like, oh, this guy seems really warm, like a really warm personality. And you know, I wish I had kind of the social juices because basically the day before I literally just got like dumped. So it was like, yeah, that was a rough day for me.
Oh, snap. When up in my head is like, I got dumped. Wait, I saw you the day before as well. You didn't get dumped. Thinking industry speak, which is when you get released, like you don't need it anymore. But
Oh no, dumped from like a relationship thing, like
fair enough.
there was some personal stuff. But yeah, no, so I think yeah, I guess hoping for an extra return is dangerous. I guess that's one example. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, hope is nice. So see, my mind has just gone blank again. But yeah, I'd say hope. There's definitely more pros than cons.
Hmm.
Where to hold on to hope, and for me, like the current where I'm at currently in terms of career and life, I still use hope as a powerful tool to give me fuel for the future stuff I want to do, particularly with filmmaking and film industry stuff, and even other stuff like I joined the gym again after 4 years, so I'm hopeful I'll get some gains coming through. If the South Asian genes allow me to, unless they make me go skinny fat first. But what can you do? But yeah. So yeah. No, I like hope. Hope is a nice tool I keep in my arsenal.
I
To
like that. And I also like that you both see it as a tool, but you also see it as it's kind of like this mind mapping, word vomiting software. Because in the last 2 or 3 minutes, you gave me a lot of different like angles to hope in terms of what you want out of life, from your career, from your body, from your health, from like there's so many different um how should we say this far-reaching possibilities that you get from hope. There's a couple of questions that I got from what you just said to me actually. One is fairly straightforward, and the others are now going to become quite challenging, I think, because they're going to be big questions. So the first one is you mentioned about I wrote it down actually. What did you say? Uh, hope provides you the inner fuel to carry on. And then you also made a comparison to perseverance, which reminded me that I'm pretty sure perseverance is a separate character strength on its own in the 24 strengths.
I
So
think you're.
what's the difference between hope and perseverance for you?
Oh, okay. For me, I guess that's a good question. So I guess for me, the hope, the hope element is, I guess, the strong belief that allows you to be perseverance, if that makes sense. So for me, the hope comes first, and then the perseverance is seeing. Well, this is just me. I could be dead wrong, but I guess the way I experience like the hope and perseverance is, is the perseverance is hope in action, and like I said, like hope without action is kind of meaningless. If you're just hoping, you could hope to get your dream job, but if you're not going to put in the work, if you're not going to persevere with constantly applying online and sending your CVs out there and doing assessment centers, then hope alone is futile. It's useless. So that's kind of my way of distinguishing between the two. The hope is the initial seeds that you use to plant the plant, and then the perseverance is the consistency, I suppose, if that makes sense.
So, okay, to flip it on this side, then, can you have perseverance without hope? What does that look like?
Um, I guess you could, but then like it depends because if you're persevering without hope, then I'd be curious as to what's driving that perseverance. So say like if you're hell bent on revenge because someone did you wrong, and you have perseverance, like every day you're like planning like some kind of revenge, and that's driven by like anger and feelings of rage, is you're persevering through that, but it's not being fueled by very healthy emotional flavors, if one might say.
Or it feels a little bit sometimes futile, like if you're just acting. What are you acting for? Is it a performance? And I don't mean acting as in like the career acting. I mean you're acting out a behavior, whatever that behavior is. You actually gave a really good example. I love what you said there. Actually, we don't worry about what's right and wrong. By the way, in terms of the character strengths, what I love about it is that it's so adaptable to how you interpret it, and we interpreted it in a very similar way. Because when you spoke to me about hope first, and you said inner fuel, I thought, okay, well, I guess there's no point having fuel in a car and you never use the car to go anywhere. So the perseverance is you actually driving the car. And then when you said about the seeds, gardening is one of my favorite analogies to do, and I really should try to do more of it this year. To be fair, I did try a little bit last year getting green fingers, but I struggled. There's something quite spiritual, I think, about gardening, in that you plant a seed in the hope that one day this seed is going to become a fruit, a plant, a tree, whatever it is. And you don't just leave it though. You have to now take care of it. You have to water it and put the right circumstances in place, and that's the perseverance, I guess. So now I'm thinking, if I was just to water the soil and there's no seed inside, i.e., no hope, what is the point of me doing this?
Exactly.
It feels like a bit of a meaningless life, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. For a lot of people, hope gives people meaning. And I think without hope, or to be hopeless, like if when you hear about people who are depressed or they have like very severe anxiety, they feel very hopeless about life. That would be always a key term. You kind of think like, yeah, I guess if you don't have meaning in your life, and if you don't think that, if you have a fixed mindset where you don't think or you don't hope that things will get better, then yeah, you're gonna make yourself sick. And yeah, that's the depressing and not an ideal way to live.
Interesting. I want to tap into something. If we go back a little bit now, you were speaking about your hopes for what it's about what you kind of want out of life and so on. So I'm going to ask you two questions. One's very broad and one's a little bit more short term. One is, what do you hope to get out of life?
Ooh, that's a deep one. What I hope to get out of life. What I hope to get out of life. Like, I think I'm at an interesting stage. I mean, I say interesting, I'm still like a mid-20-year-old, still trying to like find myself and all that crap. And where and it's funny because whenever I meet people, I had this a lot when I was traveling, where I talk about problems I'd be going through, and I'd meet people who, which I like meeting older people because they've got that wisdom, and they'd be like, oh yeah, we've been like, they'll be coming from a perspective where like they can see what you've been through and they know the trajectory or the potential flows. And sometimes it's like a process you can't speed up and you just have to go through the motions. But yeah, I'm at that stage where like I have an idea as to what I want in life. Oh, well, that's one thing. I'm kind of trying to get more acceptable with the way things are, and kind of being more present and not expecting things from life, expecting like the world doesn't owe me anything, and trying to realize, our time here is finite. It's, and not to go deep, but when my mum passed away in 2020, that definitely shifted my perspective on terms of like, wow, you can have so many plans for the future, and so many hopes and dreams, and then something could happen to your health or something like that, and it could all go away. So I think, yeah, seeing relatives pass away makes you realize, really feel how palpable the finality of life is. And I think at this point, I kind of what I want in life is just to, one, enjoy life as much as I can, in a healthy way that, that's healthy for me and doesn't harm anyone else. Hence all the traveling, my mini Asia tour, Eat, Pray, Love. No Javier Bardem swept me off my feet and took the boat badly at the end, but I digress.
No spoilers, because I've not seen that film yet.
Yep.
And
Okay.
but it's on my watch list, because every time I go on holiday, my brother takes that piss out of me so much, right? So because of turbulent people, this is so funny because we are just one big living cliche. You have a turbulent incident in your personal life, you jump on a plane, and then ever since, so now every time I go on a holiday, my brother's like, he's in his Eat, Pray, Love era. He's Julia Roberts, off she goes.
Off
I'm
she
like, I've
goes.
never seen the movie. Stop, leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. Channel your main character energy. I love it. Okay, yeah. I won't give any spoilers then.
Is it worth watching?
The thing is, I mean, it's entertaining, but like it is very certain bits problematic, and there are other bits where like I don't want to give it away, but you can tell there's a lot of privilege that
Yeah.
I haven't read the book. I don't know what the book's like, but with the character, like there are areas where like you'd think they'd be more aware of their, because it's like an affluent white woman that goes off around Asia, traveling the
Yeah.
world, jazz. And yeah, I feel like while she's traveling, you never really feel like you're traveling because most of the time she's in her expat community, not really delving out of that.
Understood.
It's still entertaining. I still enjoyed it, but yeah, I had a few pet peeves with it, but yeah,
Product of its time, to be fair. Like it's not a new movie either, is it? So, and we have a more of a, I don't want to say the word woke, but more of a woke world now compared to when it first came out, in that we're aware of these biases and these privileges and how we can try to do better in our filmmaking and so on. But yeah, sorry, you were saying before I got so inspired by Eat, Pray, Love. You're traveling around the world, you want enjoyment out of your life. What else?
Out of my life, and I kind of want to so that's kind of why I've kind of been more passionate to try and get into filmmaking, because I want to have a life where I can, I don't know, create things that you know could how do I express it? But yeah, I want to create things that can have a lasting effect and that can have meaning. And if this is my way of leaving my imprint on the world, and my way of telling the stories I want to make, and something that kind of lasts a while and moves you, even if it just moves one person, then that's enough for me. So yeah, I think definitely what I want out of the world is to make stuff, to just create stuff and try and create stuff, and hopefully someone else will enjoy it. Just one person. That's all. Yeah.
Love that. And then the second question on that, on the other side of that, is what would you like to have happen, or what do you hope to get out of this conversation?
Oh, what I hope to get out of this conversation. Well, first of all, like I wanted to catch up with you anyway, so that's definitely tick that one off the list. And yeah, I think I'd want to, because I love these kind of nuanced conversations. I think that's why podcasts in general are so popular these days, because you can really like delve into nuances and just pick at each other's brains and stuff like that. And I feel like I could learn a lot from you as well. I mean, you say you can learn stuff from me. I don't know, we'll see, because I have random thoughts and they just like fly everywhere in my head, and sometimes it's hard to keep them all grounded, but I try.
Well, it's the nuances, like you said, right? I mean, already I've got two analogies from you, the train one and the gardening one, and I'm like mentally writing them down, going to use them with my coaching clients in the future. And I'm getting more questions and stuff as you're speaking. So, already it's hey, we're vibing. It's a good time, man.
Exactly. Here for a good time, not a long time, as a
Absolutely. I was inspired to ask a couple more questions.
Go for it.
Which may be a little bit sensitive, because you've opened up and you've been vulnerable with me on a couple of situations. But if you're comfortable, I'd like to delve into 2020 and your mother passing, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problem.
And as comfortable and as much time and space as you need with it. I would imagine that when you, as you said, when you lose a loved one, hope is a very important character strength that needs to kind of come into play here. And at that time, I know you kind of came into the character strengths profile from listening to the podcast, which, by the way, massive kudos and thanks to you guys. Some of my friends don't even have that passion towards it. I know, right? Friends, air quotes.
And hunt them down one by one.
100%. Don't listen to the humor episode with Shiraz. He's the one that I got for not listening to a single episode. But anyways, sorry, say that again.
I think I did listen to that one, and like I remember there was one line where I think you said like, "Oh, by the way, you're actually not that funny," and then that cracked me up, and then
that was
when
me to him.
laughing, and I thought he was laughing, but then it was you laughing, and I was like, "Oh, he didn't find it funny."
He gave me a straight ass face, like, really. You invite me onto your podcast and you insult me? Yeah, absolutely. If you're not going to listen to one of my episodes and support me, then and leave me for another country, you're definitely going to get roasted.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was talking about the character. So I know you've only recently come into it. I'd be curious to know that during that pivotal time, with your family situation that was happening and unfolding, where do you think hope might have been at that time, and how did you perhaps use it or tap into it, if at all, to help you navigate that time?
So I think, yeah, hope during a time like that is definitely helped, because I feel like if I didn't have hope, because even though she ended up dying anyway, despite hoping that she'd get better, I still don't regret, hoping for a positive outcome, because I feel like without it, then you kind of lose the like, what's the point kind of thing. Because it happened because it was 2020 April. She was diagnosed. It was stage 4 stomach cancer. There were no signs before that, so it was very out of the blue. And it's at the time she wasn't planning on telling me, because I was in my final year of uni, and she didn't want to get me distracted with my exams. So it was only until like I think a month or two after, where things were getting very serious. My sisters, I have two sisters, and they told my mum that you're gonna have to tell them, this not really, you can't really hide it. So I found out slightly later, and and then I think at the time I didn't really process it. Like, I heard all the facts, stage 4 cancer, survival rate very low. The doctor's literally saying you won't live to see the year. And I didn't really feel it. I was thinking, no, you'll be fine. And the thing is, it's the fact that my mother at the time, she looked fine. She was good. She was a teacher at the time. She was still working. And so at the time, I didn't process. So it was very hope in the beginning was very easy. So I think that's the challenge. When things get hard, that's when you really feel like, oh, okay, now I need the hope. In the beginning, I had hope. I was like, yeah, you'll be fine, but I didn't need it. I had hope, but then I also had like, you know, I didn't. Maybe there was a bit of denialness about it, but it was only when things got worse and the facts were feeling ever more palpable and ever more real, and I could actually see her health deteriorate, was when I started thinking, oh shit, this is like, I started picturing the reality slightly. Well, that's the thing. I pictured the reality, but I'd only give it a tiny bit of bandwidth space in my head. So I'd never really contemplated her actually going. I always thought 99% of my brain was just like, okay, it's going to be a rough, like, chemotherapy ride, immunotherapy, whatever it is. But my hope was always, yeah, it was very positive hope. I was hopeful for the future. I didn't really, even when things got rough, I still held on to hope. And that's the thing. If I look back on it now, and I think if I didn't hold on to hope, even when things didn't look very hopeful, I feel like that would have ruined the interactions I did have with my mother at the time, where, even though things weren't looking good, the fact that we could still, have positive interactions and talk about the future, was nice. Yeah. Um, sorry, just
That's okay.
yeah, because there was a lot to be hopeful, because she was actually getting married at the time, and we used to talk about the future and stuff like that. And there was a plan, because I was gonna walk her down the aisle and stuff, and then because I play a bit of saxophone, and she was really keen for me to play, so it was nice to have hope for the future, and it was nice to just have conversations about that. So if I didn't have hope, then that wouldn't have happened. So yeah, no. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if it isn't logical, it's just, that's the thing about humans. We don't make sense. When literally there'll be Armageddon right in our faces. It's like, it reminds me of that scene in the Titanic where the ship's going down, and you still see that orchestra band playing the violin, and I'm like, wow, that's the human spirit in a nutshell. And yeah, even when hope doesn't make sense, it was great to just, even for a snippet, believe that the hope will kind of live out. And the thing is, even if I wasn't hopeful, even though the hope that I had that she would live didn't come to fruition. You know, it kind of the hope became gratitude, which is, I guess, is a different strength. But then it made me realize, you know what? There are so many people out there who've had so little time with their parents. Some people are born orphans. And I was like, wow. To be honest, I had 20, 21 years with her, which is a lot longer than a lot of other people. So I know it sounds mean to compare, but that, that was a privilege. So it was nice to have that. And it helps you teach gratitude. But yeah, I guess going back to the question, yeah, sorry, what was the question again? It was, I know, what was
The question was, you've answered it already, to be fair. And while I know in your head you're probably like, I just waffled. How did I answer it? I've even forgotten the question. You've answered it in that you. I was asking, how did hope play a part in you navigating that difficult time? And it's one of those things that, according to the human nuance, we can't necessarily explain it in a, like you said, a logical way. We can't say A plus B equals C, and that's how hope occurred. It was just one of those things that occurred, and it made sense to you and your mother at the time. And yeah, just listening to you actually being in that space was really touching. So again, a huge thank you for allowing us to share that space with you. But it was a really poignant reminder, like you said, even when it doesn't make sense, hope helped us make sense of things. And when you were talking about Armageddon um or the Titanic scene with the band playing, it reminds me of everything that's happening in Gaza at the moment. And I am not sorry to any listener who has to listen to me right now and be like, here he goes again. Every episode he finds a way to bring it in. I
Oh,
absolutely have zero qualms or apologies about that, because if we don't bear witness and hold space for it, then what are we even bothering with these platforms for? I remember when I was in Palestine in 2019, sorry.
yeah.
Um, I was walking in, it wasn't in the West Bank because we weren't allowed to go there, which is where Gaza is, right? I was in Jerusalem, which is on the east side, and um, we were doing a tour of one of the towns or something like that, and the tour guide was telling us how, like, this is occupied space, this is occupied space, this is occupied space, all of this is occupied. And he was comparing the stories from how this town would look in the 70s and the 80s, like bustling market towns, people out and about, women, men, children. You could hear laughter, you could hear sound, you could hear chaos. It was beautiful, right? And now we walked and it was just a ghost town. And I remember seeing on one of the walls a spray painted message, and it was just a four-letter word, and it said hope. And I took a picture of that because it really resonated with me that this is a people who have had their lives occupied, dictated by a group of people who have nothing to do with that land and who have come in and taken their own land. And yet these people have hope. And now we're 6 months into this genocide. We're the massacre of the Al Shifa hospital over the last 2 weeks, the writing on the walls. I don't know if you saw that. There's some pictures and posts and videos going around, Raihan. It's worth checking out actually, where people who were in the hospital had written messages on the wall for people to, like, whoever finds them afterwards. And there was messages of despair, there was messages of hope, there was messages of, like, every kind of emotion that they would probably be experiencing at that time. It's about leaving a legacy in essence. And I think it's really beautiful that on a micro level, while you and your mother were having your own situation of hope, etc., we can also apply it on a global scale.
100.
So yeah, please don't feel like you haven't answered the question. You absolutely have, and it tells us how applicable it is. Was there anything like specific that you did that you think either you or your mother or other family members that you think these are the ones that were kind of these actions, these moments were greasing the wheels of hope?
Greasing the wheels of hope. Um, like actions to
Yeah,
make
it could
hope.
be just anything that you did. I know you said you had like conversations. You were talking about the wedding, for example, potentially you playing saxophone. Was there anything else that comes to mind that you were perhaps were like did or you made sure of speaking about in your conversations? Anything at all?
Yeah, I think because I think a lot of it was just having conversations about the future, which helped kind of create this potential reality for a hopeful future. And like even stuff like we joke about, like when I'm like an old man and she'd still be like having to cook for. Well, I can cook, but like, you know, I still like go to her for like laundry and stuff like that. So we joke about stuff like, you know, silly stuff. Because I'll be honest, like I was a bit of a mummy's boy, so you know, we had a good tight relationship, and my sister's probably a bit jealous about that, but don't. But yeah. So I think in terms of greasing the wheels of hope, I like that one. I might use that. But um, yeah, greasing the wheels of hope. So I'm just letting that marinate in my head because I want to
No,
give
that's
you.
fine. Absolutely. We don't have to answer it right now. If it comes to you later on, that's also fine. Because I think most of what you've said, the common theme there is about visualizing the future in some
Yeah,
way. Whether you knew that future was going to happen or not, the prognosis wasn't the best from what the doctors had said and so on, but it didn't stop you from still talking about the future. And that was short term, mid-term, long term, whatever future it was. Wedding, when I'm an old man, you're going to be still doing my laundry and so on. It was just there always to talk about the future.
yeah, exactly. That's a good one you topped on. I think I did visualize and I dabbled in prayer to help grease the. So I think I guess those ones kind of count as greasing the wheels. Um, yeah, dabbling in prayer and visualization to kind of, you know, try and tap into an almighty power or universal being for help, for just I don't know, just to make one's self feel more assured for the future. So I think I definitely dabbled in that, and that definitely helped. Even if I didn't think it helped at the time, it was still good to try out other options. And that's the beautiful thing about hope, because it makes you keep trying, even if odds don't look like it's in your favor. And like even going back to Gaza, it it just looks so bleak. The more I look about what's going on there, and the more it just makes me feel like I'm in a parallel universe, like we're seeing a genocide in real time. Because at least with the Holocaust, people didn't realize until like a couple of years after, whereas now we're seeing it in real time, and then leaders still do. But then people still hold on to hope in the darkest of places, and I think that's quite powerful. And you know, people from Palestine are some resilient motherfuckers. Sorry, excuse my language, but and it reminds me of this. I remember it was early this year after New Year's Day, and I was in London, and I was literally just going for a falafel. So I went to this. I think it was Go Falafel. Um, and the lady there, she was super sweet as well, because I was messaging my sister saying, "Do you want anything?" And it was that thing where like I kept waiting for my sister saying like, "Let me know, I'm in the queue and the person's waiting for me to order." And the lady, she was so lovely. She like gave me free falafels while I was waiting and stuff. And then I thought, because she was so lovely, I thought I'd try and make conversation, like small talk, just to be friendly. And I said, "Oh, did you do anything for New Year's Eve and stuff?" And then she said, "Not really." And then she said, "I've just lost 20 members of my family."
Oh
And
my
then
God.
this is heavy, because she was Palestinian, and I was just thinking like, I didn't even have the words, because no words could really like assure someone. All I just said, as best as I could do, is, "I'm so sorry, and like hope like we're with you," and generic stuff. But like it just made me realize, wow, the fact that you have the ability to go to work, go to your daily life, and then just carry that with you. It takes a level of perseverance and just very strong will and hope, because she, even though you could see in her eyes, she was just, so much sorrow. And yeah, that broke me, just to see that, and the fact that, she's still working as well. And yeah, hope. I think hope definitely is helping her get through it. Just about, but yeah, I think.
I also feel like from what you've said to me there, it's what came to me was this idea that hope is a discipline. It's
Mm,
not like a single prayer that you make one time and then it's over. It's a real, I think it sounds like something you have to really practice, because let's use the example of that lady there, for example, or even, or even your mother. Like, let's talk about mothers in general, not every single mother out there, obviously, but mothers in general. There's this idea that they have some of the hardest job in the world, if I may say. Like, as a male, I would 100% throw my hand up high and say I really do think parenting is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. especially when, you know, a woman is biologically involved in that as well, right? Now, there are times when you are so exhausted, like to the brim of wanting to give it all up or can't be bothered. But the discipline of carrying on going, the perseverance, kind of tides you over until you're in a better health and mental well-being space in order to have some of that hope back again. And that's what it tells me, like you can't, like, hope diminishes, it increases, it diminishes, it increases, it diminishes, goes around in waves and whatnot. What do we do when it goes really, really low? We rely on the times when hope was high, and that kind of has added to our reserve of this discipline that we built up. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but I just feel like it's one of those things where if you practice it enough, when it is low, the reserve from your time when it was good will kick in and tide you over until you're ready to be like good again, better again.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because then it's a thing where like you're not just hopeful when you're in a good mood kind of thing. It's there through the tough times and the bad times. That's kind of my interpretation of what you meant. But that,
Exactly that. And there was
yeah,
something as well that you said about when hope turns into gratitude, as when you were talking about your mother, actually, when it was like, even when hope was low, gratitude kicked in because it was, I feel privileged to have had that time, and I privileged to have had that relationship as well, not just time, because you can spend 20 years with someone and it'd be quite sour and horrible, but
yeah,
quite a warm relationship that we've had and a loving one and so on. And that also adds to that reserve that will kick in when your energy levels are particularly low.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, profound. I like to know that. I mean, I'm learning from this conversation that the interconnectedness between these character strengths is a lot deeper than I had assumed on first level. And secondly, that they all kind of help feed into each other.
Yeah, I can imagine. And is there anything else that's just surprised you about, getting to know your character strengths? And when you might have already been asked this, but was there anything that surprised you when you got your results?
Yeah, it was the episode on love, where I spoke about. I was so shocked that it was so high up. That one just really stood out to me for some reason. Being is because the last time I took the survey was, I think it was 8 or 9 months ago. I like to do it every so often just to see like
Okay.
what's changing so that I can tap into something that's a little bit lower or perhaps use something a little bit less, because there is a danger of overusing some of those. A bit like hope, for example. If you overuse hope, it might go into a bit of delusion, which isn't always helpful. So love was number 4, I think, and that shot up from number 20 in the last time. So it wasn't even like 1 or 2 spaces. Yeah. So that episode got me really thinking a lot about, got me some hope as well. I don't really know what to do with that hope with it, just because I have such an allergy to love. So I'm just probably still in the process of accepting the fact that it is one of my signature strengths at the moment.
Yeah. So why didn't you like it being your strength? Is it because it sounds cringy or soppy?
Probably, but also I feel like for most of my life, no, let me rephrase that. For recent part of my life, I've thought of love as such a um it's an embellishment, it's such a add-on. It's such a nuisance for now. It's such an add-on. That's such a like privileged thing that I can think about later on. Right now, I've got to do the basic groundwork, the foundations, and so on, and really build it out from there. And maybe at some point in the future, I will hope for love to become one of those things that is embellishing my life, cherry on the top. And then to see it being quite high up was a bit like, what? How dare one of my prayers get answered? How dare I be okay with love and so on? And we worked out from that session. There was two. I think you'd quite like it, actually. There were two guests in that episode, and we were all kind of bouncing off each other. It turned into a bit of a mini therapy session. We worked out almost that it might be the case that it's gone higher up because I've started to love myself a little bit more. Um, it took a long time. It was the longest episode yet, and it took a long time before we kind of realized maybe that's what it is, because I'm doing things over the last few years that are pouring into my own cup without realizing it. I'm loving myself a little bit more, and what I have perhaps been doing unwittingly is persevering on my hope. It's actually, let me show you something.
Oh yeah.
So this is my journal from 2020. I started this when I first started my master's in coaching psychology. University of East London sends you out a little journal, and I was like, oh, here we go, another book. What should I use this one for? Sorry, you were saying what's annoying is that when I'm speaking on this and speak over it, it mutes the other person.
Oh, sorry, there might be a lag. Sorry, no, I was just surprised that that's nice that they gave you that. But yeah, no, you
Yeah,
carry.
no, bit of funding that UEL does have. Whoop. Um, and I wrote my first. Oh, it's nearly a. So by the time this episode comes out, it will actually be a year, and it was the pandemic, which was memorable for loads of different reasons. Obviously, very different reason to you. For me, the pandemic was life changing, but not because of I had lost anybody or even had anybody in our vicinity didn't have COVID either. It was just life changing because we all had to really come internal. And I mean, like, really internally hold a mirror up to ourselves and be like, you need to check yourself because life has now stopped. So I used to be a teacher during that time. And when you're so on the go, you might be able to relate from your mum's stories. You're so on the go all the time that you never get a chance to stop and actually look at yourself in the mirror. And I mean that on a metaphorical, deeper level. So this was the one time that I was able to really check myself, check my life choices, check my future. And I use this journal as a way to write letters to God during Ramadan. Yeah, it was first of Ramadan. It was the 24th of April, and I wrote one letter to God every single night of that Ramadan, and I've been writing in it like every so often since then. And one of the things I remember writing in there was about love, and not just romantic love. I was asking God about love for Him, love for humanity, love for mankind, love for friendships, love for growing, love like you insert any name after that. That's what I asked him for. And it feels so weird that over those last 4 years, that's been coming to fruition. And I think seeing it as number four was a bit like, what are you doing? I thought it was just something I was doing. Don't call me out for it. Move it down.
Download, guys. Got to keep my street cred. Yeah.
For real. Ugh. Um, yeah, it sounds like a bit of a follow-on from the love episode, but honestly, the reason why I shared that part is because that was clearly a hope I had in 2020.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't realize when some of your hopes are playing out in your life.
And if I may ask, what gave you the inspiration to write letters to God, or was it always to something divine, or what? Or did you see other people do it, or what kind of spurred that on?
This one was so I'm a big believer. I love a good handwritten letter. I love a good handwritten letter, whether it's to a person, a pen pal, whatever. I just love a good handwritten letter. I feel like in our religion, Islam, like and people who teach me Islam are talking always about making dua or making when you pray, you're asking God and you're talking to God and so on. But vulnerability alert. I'm My journey with religion is it's been a bit up, down, shake it all about, in, out, hokey cokey and all that, right? As most as most people do go through, I believe, anyways. Just some
Yeah,
people are more vocal about it than others.
yeah,
I struggled to talk to God in a way that like was nuanced or in a way that because there's this like you have this prescription of you should start your prayers with praising God and then praising the prophet and then you thank him and then you ask for what you want, etc. There's a bit of a formula. While I
mm,
do like formulas and discipline, just something wasn't feeling very natural, so I started to write instead and letting it flow from there, and it felt a lot more cathartic, it felt a lot more authentic. And honestly, if I was to read back, which I do every year, I'd go back through my letters in Ramadan, and I think every single one of my prayers have been answered since then.
wow,
Every single one of my hopes, because what is prayer but a hope, right? Or form of gratitude and then and a hope. I think every single one has been answered since then, and I don't know how. Bit of perseverance, bit of gratitude. I don't know if that's like a little formula that I can write down for people, but no, I don't want
yeah,
to claim it because these are formulas that have been around forever.
yeah,
So that's why I wrote it in that just gave me a different way. It's like one of the things what I want to talk about with the character strengths. If something is not working out for you, it's time to change it up, mix it up, try something different.
mm, yeah. No, I think that's quite profound because then, yeah, there's always something about when you write things from pen to paper. It kind of you feel it really like releasing from yourself more. And yeah, sometimes I dabbled in journaling, but then I always found myself repeating the same things. And I guess you have to be at a place where you're kind of ready to be vulnerable with yourself and with the divine, which is quite that's so otherworld. That's why I'm like, wow, that's quite, to be at that space and to uh yeah, because like even right now with religion, I'm still a bit agnostic, but I think the concept of right. I just love that concept of, you know, right. It reminds me of, I think there's this book about like divine love with the with the divine. I can't remember, but no, it reminded me of that. But yeah, sorry, my thoughts keep leaving me. Apologies.
That's
But
right. And I don't want to say like I don't want to come across as this guy who, you know, a total monk goes and writes journals to God and now it's become his best friend and whatnot. Like because I and I'm okay to share this. I don't read everything out loud to people, but you know what? So that was on the first of Ramadan. I started great energy. Woo, let's go for it. The ninth
yeah,
of Ramadan, ninth fast, right? So I've done my little introduction where I, you know, say address dear Allah, and then I write some like names of his and some attributes and praise. I'm losing the energy and the zeal. Bring my energy back to you. That's it. 2 lines.
yeah,
After like writing pages and pages in the previous episode, in previous entries, just 2 lines. I'm losing my energy. Bring me back to you. I think it's just quite telling of how we can. One of my biggest saviors, if you like, to understanding my relationship with faith is finding your own path to it. I'm a big believer in
yeah,
like walk your own way to it, find your own connection rather than following what everyone else tells you to do, which is it's there for a guidance and a purpose and discipline. I get that, but sometimes you do just need to find your own flavor, whatever that is. Because I believe that we're all like trying to the intention is the same, right? You're trying to make some kind of connection there with the divine or whatever that is. So find your own thing.
yeah. And so wait, you wrote a letter every day for 30 days. So
Yeah.
and after that day, did you feel the kind of, I don't know how to describe, like a external kind of inspiration? Did it tap in, or was it just a sake of just really just sheer willpower to get you through it, or did something, was there like a spark that let you get through it, or what kind of gave you the fuel in essence? Was it hope, or what was it during that time?
I think it was hoping, like when I mentioned about how I was forced to slow down.
Yeah,
Obviously that Ramadan started in 24th of April. Our lockdown started 23rd of March. So by that time I'd had a month already to be like, whoa, relax. Like you can't go into work. You have to teach your lessons online. Like some of the students aren't even turning up because it's so fresh into the and I used to work in a like a fairly lower socioeconomic school. So some of the students are still getting set up with laptops, with Microsoft Teams. Our class sizes have shrunk massively. So there's a lot of downtime happening here and a lot of confusion and ambiguity. And I think it was, I think I might have tapped into a bit of like you and I have similar energy of like, want to make the most out of life, right? If I don't do it now, then when? And this pandemic has thrown this whole world into some weird thing that no one really knows what we're doing. None of us know what we're doing.
yeah,
So I can sit here and be confused and twiddle my thumbs, or I can make some use of the time. And for me, use of the time made sense to me just to kind of start doing the things I'd always wanted to do, but I couldn't because of work, i.e., workout. Can't blame it on work anymore because I can now do some workouts at home. I can't go to the gym because can't afford it, don't have the time. Those aren't excuses, bro, because they're literally not available to you. So you might as well start working out at home. And one of them was to get closer to my spirituality or reignite my faith. And I thought I stick to what I know, which is let me start writing. And I hadn't started my master's at that time. So although I use it a lot with my clients as a positive psychology intervention, I knew that it was something that I always used to do anyways. I'm looking at one of the entries. Bro, I was talking to God about a K drama I was watching at the time.
wow, what?
A Korean drama I was watching at the time.
Oh, see, I love that. I love that you get personal, because then it kind of it makes it more relatable if you can relate to God. But it just, that's the thing, that when people pray, you know, they say worship him, or I find Christians do this a lot where they really personalize God, and I totally get why they do it, just to make God more accessible. So I think, yeah, I like that you went into details like that, because it just makes the divine more accessible. And I feel like as humans, you know, sometimes it definitely helps in terms of connecting. And yeah, no, I love that little detail.
I think there's something there that's quite poignant that you said about making the divine accessible, making hope accessible. Like it's so crucial. I've had my fair share of my victim era of the world owes me, woe unto me, this shouldn't have happened to me, and that shouldn't have happened to me, blah blah blah. Yes, all of those things are valid and true, but for how long are you going to sit in that and stew? Because, like, if I go back to what you were saying with your mother, there was a finite time, and you said about life in general, there's a finite time that we have here. You have a choice now. Do you want to make it all doom and gloom all the time? Or what's the alternative? Bit more positive thinking, bit more optimism in life, if you like, and which one actually makes that very finite time more enjoyable?
Yeah, 100%. It's almost like trying to live as a Zen way of living, as Buddhists might say, where literally nothing is good or bad in itself. The way you react to things, the way you choose to kind of interpret things and respond to things. And I think when you realize, or when you kind of approach life in a neutral setting, that definitely just makes or helps reduce anxiety, reduces the kind of the thoughts that might be cascading in your head, especially when it revolves around death, saying, you know, like, oh, this is terrible, or like, oh, like you said, why did this happen to me? Where like, if you kind of, I know it's easier said than done, but if you just watch the thoughts and you don't follow them, because it's almost like they have a magnetic pull where like there's an allure where, you know, they just multiply if you follow them, and then you go on this clouded fog in your head. And if you're just aware of that, that really helps to kind of put things in perspective where, oh, okay, I'm not really what I'm thinking and feeling. I'm really a witness. I'm witnessing what I'm thinking and feeling. And it's getting trippy now, but it's like there's almost like a dual nature between the self and your thoughts. It's like when people say, "Oh, I hate myself," or "I love myself." It's like there's two people. There's like, "Oh, who are you loving?" There's like, yeah, there's like a dual approach. And I think when take a step back in your head, that's why even right now I'm kind of, I think, like, it sounds silly, but like I think a lot less now, just because it's just a lot less stressful. Because when you have all these thoughts just crashing in your head, and but then it can stress you up. But then when you realize a lot of these thoughts, they're not even yours, it definitely puts things into perspective, and just it just makes navigating and being present a lot easier. So yeah, no, I totally get that. I think I might have gone off on a tangent, so apologies, but yeah.
We often do. We often do on this podcast, which always means it's a good time for a short little break. So just a reminder for listeners to, if you haven't already, I'm going to put details of Raihan's ventures in the description box as well. Click on those, give him a follow, give this podcast episode a thumbs up, share it with a friend, etc. We are going to be returning on the other side of this short break of you subscribing and pressing pause, hitting the kettle and making yourself a drink or whatever. We're going to be tapping into a little bit more about your travels, Raihan, and your career, because we believe there's some exciting things happening from tomorrow onwards. So I want to know a little bit more about that and the role that hope has to play. So